Thank you for coming this afternoon. I know it's a busy news day, but we appreciate you coming. We have press kits in the back for you, which include a speakers list. We have 4 speakers today, and we have other people here who are showing some support as well. Chris, thanks for coming. You're all set. Joining me here are Debbie Hauser, the Executive Director of the Airport Area Business Association. Also, Steve Falk, the President and CEO of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. He'll be speaking. Victor Martinez of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And representing the African American Chamber of Commerce, Francine Banford and Keith Houston are here. And Michael Burns, of course, the General Manager of SCVTA, the Valley Transportation Authority, are here today. So we're here to talk about the fleet of the future, and these photographs we've got are from the best scoring bidders factory in America. They're building train cars for the Metro North Railroad, which is the railroad that serves New York City from Connecticut and Westchester County. We have photos of those in the press kit for you. So let me get started with our General Manager, Grace Kroniken.
Thanks everyone for coming today. We appreciate you being here. We have some good news to share with you. As most of you know, BART operates the oldest rail cars in the country. Most of our rail cars are 40 years old. And that fact means that the decision that we are announcing today will affect transportation in the Bay Area for generations to come. Today we are recommending Bombardier be selected to build our fleet of the future. Bombardier rail cars are built in America, and their bid was $184 million lower than the next bidder. Those savings will allow us to buy even more rail cars for the Bay Area riders. I want to take a minute to highlight the legislation sponsored by Assemblywoman Nancy Skinner and thank her, the legislature, and Governor Brown for passing legislation that allowed our Buy America points to be increased as a result of their work. It allowed the BART Board to award extra points to proposers that exceeded the national Buy America requirements, and we're convinced that it worked. The new fleet will be assembled in America and have 2/3 American content. The exceptional price for these American assembled cars will mean a real savings for the Bay Area. Our original estimate was for $3.2 billion. Bombardier's bid came in at $2.5 billion. That's an $800 million savings for the Bay Area. Bombardier represents the best combination of low price and the highest representation of technical scoring. And I want to have our head of operations, Paul Overseer, walk you through what we've been doing for the last 31 months. Paul?
Thank you, Grace. I'd like to start off by reiterating a couple of the numbers that the General Manager just mentioned. First of all, Bombardier's proposed winning bid for the 775 rail cars was $1.543 billion. Now, the important part of that is that it represents a bid that is 12% or $184 million lower than the next lowest price proposal that we got, which was from the French car builder Alstom. Now, what this very competitive price proposal from Bombardier will allow us to do is that the staff recommendation to the board will be not just to award the initial base contract of 260 cars, but because of the good price that we receive from Bombardier, the staff is going to recommend that we also at the same time exercise the first of 4 options for an additional 150 vehicles. What that means is that on Thursday, the BART Board will hear a recommendation that we buy 410 cars from Bombardier. That means that we are more than halfway to the complete replacement of BART's oldest in the country rail vehicles. Now, price is important, and that's why we're talking about it. And BART certainly wants to be good stewards of the public's money. But quality and car reliability is also very important to this agency, and more importantly, is critical to our 375 daily riders. Because car reliability and service reliability is so important to the future of this agency, reliability-related factors weighed very heavily in our evaluation process of the 3 proposals that we got. And I'm very happy to say that Bombardier was also the clear winner in our ratings of the technical aspect of the proposals that we received. So the recommended award to Bombardier that we'll be making on Thursday represents the best of all worlds. It represents the lowest price proposal along with the highest technical score that was received from any of the 3 finalists. Grace mentioned the exhaustive and intensive and lengthy proposal evaluation process that we've been through at the district. 31 months we have been since we advertised for these cars and received proposals to get us to this point. We've had 29 BART experts and transit industry experts who participated in the actual scoring of these 3 proposals. There were over 500 individual criteria that were scored by these 29 people. In addition to that, the scoring, or members of the scoring team, visited 20 different car builder facilities throughout the world to verify that what they said on paper, in fact, they could deliver. 10 of those facilities are in North America and 5 each in Asia and Europe. So the process was designed to obtain the very best quality car that we could get at a fair and reasonable price, and we believe that we have accomplished that. So in summary, we feel very fortunate to be able to announce today that we can recommend to the BART Board of Directors that they award this contract for 410 cars to the car builder that achieved both the highest technical score for their proposal as well as giving us the very lowest price of the 3 proposals that we got. Thank you very much, and with that I will turn it over to Betty Deacon. Is that right?
Sure, Paul. We'll have time for questions with Grace and Paul in a moment, but first we wanted to introduce a couple of other speakers. Betsy Deacon from the University of California at Berkeley, the director of the Transportation Research Center. Thank you.
I'd like to speak for just a moment to put this in the context of what's happening in the Bay Area. BART cars are important not just to BART but to the whole region. And the reason for that is that BART is a critical element in the regional transportation system. We could not function in the Bay Area if BART were not able to provide the service it provides every morning, every evening, all day long. The BART car age that you've heard about makes it the oldest fleet in the nation, and not just by a little, by about 10 years on average. So we've managed to keep the existing BART cars going because we've had very excellent engineering. But engineers can't work miracles, and it's time to replace the cars. And we need to start doing this on a regular basis. This is part of a larger program that BART will be investing in for a state of good repair. And that's going to take making committed efforts over many years to make sure that we maintain the kind of high-quality service that we have, that we maintain the high-quality reliability that we've seen with our service, and that we're able to handle the growth that we're seeing in BART ridership. BART ridership estimates for last year for this year were 348,000 riders a day. We're already passing that. We've reached up to 400,000 riders a day several times this year and are running about 375,000 riders a day. So our growth has been fast, and the region counts on that growth to be able to deliver people to their work, to be able to deliver them to shopping and to social and recreational activities and to visit their families. Very important for social equity purposes that BART be available. A lot of BART riders depend on BART for getting to work, for getting to visit their families, for getting to school. It's also very important to the economic development of the region. We estimate in a study that we did at Cal that conservatively, for every dollar that BART spends, we get $1.7 in the regional economy. There's a big multiplier there. So it's good for the economy of the region to have this. It's also an important environmental benefit to have BART running and running reliably and on time. The BART system reduces greenhouse gases, reduces air pollution, reduces a lot of other impacts that we would face if we didn't have the BART system running reliably. If we don't replace the cars and we have reliability problems, we would certainly see more people driving, more traffic congestion. Nobody really wants to deal with that. We have enough of that as it is. So we need to replace these cars. We need to get a move on. We can't keep operating the oldest cars in the region. We need to have reliable service, and this is a big step forward for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Next is Steve Falk of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Well, to say that the business community, not only in San Francisco but throughout the Bay Area, relies on BART to work every day would be an understatement. Upwards of 400,000 Bay Area residents, most of them going to work every day, absolutely rely on this system. Business would not function. San Francisco would be a dramatically different city today without BART. Of those 400,000 riders, almost a third of them exit the BART station somewhere in San Francisco. Imagine what those freeways and bridges would look like without BART moving 400,000 employees to work every day. So the business community is very supportive. We are just pulling out of this deep recession. The Bay Area is leading the state, and BART is helping business to lead the economy. It is absolutely crucial that we move this project forward. So congratulations to you, Grace, and your leadership, and in advance to the BART board for making this decision. You know, in 1972, BART was the role model for the rest of the country and other parts of the world. Today, 40 years later, we need to reinvest in this great asset and keep our economy growing. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have some time for questions, particularly for Grace and Paul, about the bid process and Bombardier. So, Zusha?
I have a question. Was there any consideration given to the fact that Bombardier had to replace a bunch of faulty parts in Chicago trains recently? What are you doing to ensure that that doesn't happen?
Paul, come on up here. We were fully aware of the Chicago parts. I think I'll let Paul answer the specifics of the technical.
Yeah, as Grace said, we are aware of the situation in Chicago, and what I would say is this, that any car builder that builds subway cars will occasionally run into a problem with the contract. And what really differentiates the good car builders from the second and third tier car builders, and we consider Bombardier to be a good car builder, is how frequently they run into problems, and secondly, how they deal with the problem once it occurs. So to have a problem in a car contract as complicated and as big as the one in Chicago, these things happen, and they happen with all the car builders on occasion. But overall, Bombardier has a good record. Quite frankly, Bombardier was the company that rehabilitated the 439 original BART cars, which today, as we speak, even though those are the original cars, even though those are the oldest cars we have, they're also the most reliable cars that we operate. So this is a company that we have some experience with. This is a company that last time they did a big contract for BART, they delivered.
But what are you going to do? The problem was that there was a manufacturing plant in China that made bad parts. So what are you guys going to do to make sure that...
We have a plan for that inspection. Paul?
Well, any transit agency as a good customer has a responsibility to be aggressive and thoughtful and knowledgeable in how they manage these contracts. You simply cannot just leave the car builder alone and hope that you get a good result. There has to be oversight. As Grace said, there's inspection, not just inspection at the final assembly plant, but inspection at some of the key subsystem facilities. It's a mutual relationship, and we at BART are completely prepared to be, as I said earlier, an aggressive, a proactive, a thorough customer, and quite frankly, we intend to hold their feet to the fire because we cannot afford to get anything but the most reliable of vehicles out of this contract. At the end of the day, we think Bombardier is capable and will deliver that.
Zusha, and this is your chance to explain those high costs you got for inspectors and everything else, because we have planned for this to go one-on-one at the plants here, assembly, and we've been talking with other properties as well and have some, I think, insight as to what is the job it's going to take to do the inspections at every step of the way. So we have a very aggressive plan and budget for those items. Thanks for asking the question. Others?
The French company that said that they could build 95% of the cars in the U.S. or using U.S.-made parts. What weight did that carry?
It carried a lot of weight. The bid was, I believe there was a delta. They got credit for $151 million in the bidding price. So the Buy America provision gets incorporated into the price element of this bidding price. And there's 8 components, which I don't think Paul ran through. But price is one of them. Price is 33% of the consideration. And the French got a $151 million credit toward their price. And with that $151 million credit, still, Bombardier beat their bid by $184 million, which is hard to turn your back on.
And just to clarify the numbers,
Dennis, please.
The 151 applies to the 410 cars or the whole fleet?
The evaluation price, or the evaluation of the price was based on just one number, and that's the number for the full 775 cars. So when we say that the Bombardier bid was $184 million lower than the French company Alstom's bid, that's for the full contract value of $775. 775 cars, rather. Excuse me.
Also, could you talk a little bit about where Bombardier is going to do what in terms of delivering these cars?
Sure.
What's overseas, where the cars are assembled, all of that.
Sure. All of the manufacturers have plants on the East Coast. The French and Bombardier have them in upstate New York, and Roten's plant was in Philadelphia. So in the case of Bombardier, they'll be in Plattsburgh, New York, is where the assembly will be, and their component parts are around the country. The manufacturers of the components are around the country, and they do have some that are international. Want to say anything more?
No.
So the base car itself, I'm not sure.
The assembly of the car will be in Plattsburgh, New York.
Okay, and it's made in America.
66%, 67% of the component parts that are purchased and the cost of the assembly itself will be in America. The assembly will be in Plattsburgh, New York. So there's some subcomponent parts that will be from abroad.
When you say that they Alstom got credit for $151 million, was that the delta between manufacturing 2/3 of it in the U.S. or manufacturing 95% of it in the U.S.?
In the process we set up, I'm going to try this and then I'll let you try. In the process we set up, price had a certain weight. I told you that was 33%. In that price, we set up a process whereby if you had a domestic content above the 60% that the feds require, you would get a 1/4 point credit toward your price, a 1/4% credit. So we, as you said, the French company had a 95% domestic content. So that 95%, the delta between 60 and the 95%, which is 35%, was then translated into a percentage of the bid they made. And that bid still came in $184 million higher than the Bombardier price. And that bid is for only ranking them. The bid wouldn't, it's for ranking purposes only.
If you look at the amount of money that stays in the United States because of U.S. parts and U.S. manufacturing versus the Bombardier bid where 30% of it's going out of the country, it seems like more money would have stayed in the U.S. by going with Alstom.
Well, first of all, you have to take into account the lower price that we pay in the first place. And then secondly, the mechanism for evaluating these proposals is highly regulated by the federal government they watch. So we lay it out and then we need to follow our procedures. And as we follow our procedures and you get to the end of the bid, you can either choose to accept the highest scoring bid, which includes price and others, or you can throw all the bids out. So where we end up right now is to incorporate that Buy America provision, which we did, and we really do thank the legislature and Governor Brown for enabling the board to take those added points into account. But those get incorporated into the overall process. So, you know, as I said, $151 million is a lot of credit towards that Buy America provision. And then at some point, it's not just where it's made, but it's the quality of the product. Our evaluation percentages, as Paul mentioned, were highly weighted toward reliability of the cars, then towards price, in which Buy America was considered, and then other technical factors. Do you want to add something to that?
No, just to reiterate, it's really a three-prong evaluation process. We could not look just at the Buy America content and ignore two other very important factors, which is the reliability and technical competency demonstrated in the proposal. I mean, the reliability is absolutely essential to this organization. BART is known as having a very inflexible infrastructure, and as go the cars, so goes the reliability of the service. So quite frankly, from a staff standpoint, and if you look at the weights of the factors that we used to score the proposals, price was only 1/3. Everything else was 2/3, and that everything else largely reflects our effort to measure the reliability of the vehicle and the technical competency of the car builder. So reliability is important. Price, we've talked about, is very important. $184 million difference between the two car builders. That's the equivalent of 104 additional cars that we could buy with those savings. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today talking to you about a recommendation to our board of directors to award a contract not for 260 cars, but to award a contract for 410 cars. So certainly we understand the importance of Buy America. We understand the importance of American jobs. We factored that into the evaluation process, but we also had to look at the larger picture, which included reliability and price.
And 66% domestic content is a good number, which we got, I think, because of the work of the legislature. Other questions?
So,
Dennis.
Could you amplify a little bit about what choices the board has to do with the
Certainly.
recommendation? Because it seems to me, as you laid it out, their choices are award it to Bombardier or else start the process.
The federal procurement process has been highly designed and redesigned and legislated. So we have to follow a course of action with the feds that's fairly prescribed. So what it does is you lay out your point structure, bids are brought in, then we have conversations with the bidders, then they give a best and final offer, which we call BAFO if it's not translated in the document. Once you lay that out, then we follow the procedures, the bids come in, and we evaluate them on the 500 factors that Paul mentioned. So when you get to the end, you have selected the bidder that's best qualified to accept the bid, and it is a combination of the 7 or 8 items we've talked about. And at that point, that goes to the board. The board's choice is to either accept the bid, or their choice is to reject the bid. And if they reject the bid, then we go back through the process of bidding the cars, and it will be between 12 and 24 months before we are able to be back at this same point and run through the process again. And so what would happen next time in a very prescribed process is we would do the same thing, and there's no guarantee that we would have the same low bids that we got in, the same number of bidders, the quality of the bids at that point. Dennis? Other questions?
Just a quick refresher, time schedule for the rest of the cars after these 410. When are these 410 expected to be in service, and then when will the remainder of the fleet?
They expect to be, we begin delivery in late 2016, early 2017, and they start coming in. When do we finish that out?
Yeah, I believe we finished the 410th car comes to the property in about 2023. And it's essentially, because we are replacing the entire car fleet, we cannot afford to have anything but the most reliable of cars when they first show up. And so we're going through a very extensive testing process where we have the car builder provide us with 10 prototype cars. We test them, we measure them, we instrument them, we run them in revenue service for several months, and only after they pass that very rigorous test do we tell them it's okay to now turn on the production line. And that's why it's such a lengthy process, because there's so much at stake here in terms of the reliability of our service.
So if you take our cars now that are little over, some of them, the average is a little below 40, but say they're 40-year-old cars now, by the time that we begin to replace the fleet and they're already 45 years old, and we're already the oldest. Another implication that hasn't been discussed, if the board should decide, which is a choice the board has, but if the board should decide not to pursue this, that delays our schedule of cars, and that impacts VTA and the extension down to Berryessa, because we are scheduled for that to open in 2017, and we're expecting to have the cars 2016?
2016, early 2017.
Yeah, December, January, in there. So we need the cars for VTA, and if the board chooses, which they have the right to do, to put it off, then we start through the process again, and then it's uncertain by, again, 12 to 24 months as to when we'd start back up again. Also, to the issue of jobs, if this contract were to be accepted, the jobs start in this country to be manufactured. If the manufacturing starts, you know, as we speak, things start to produce. And if we put it off for 12 to 18 months or 24 months, that just delays the process of those jobs beginning here. Please, Zusha.
What did you think of the radio campaign? And there's this website, you know, they wanted you guys to pick the company that had the most domestically produced product. And even, I think Congressman Garamendi made a big deal of it and toured the Alstom plant in Mare Island. What do you think about that campaign?
Well, the Alstom plant in Mare Island doesn't come into play. It's not part of the French proposal at all. The jobs were proposed to be built in Hormel, New York, not here in California. Everyone has the right to do what they want. The Alstom company put in a bid. We evaluated that bid fairly and squarely. And do you want to say anything more than that?
No, I think you said it all. We had prescribed criteria for evaluating the bids. It looked at price, it looked at quality, it looked at American content. And at the end of the day, Alstom the French company came in second, and they would have cost the taxpayers an additional $184 million to get the same number of cars.
So, thank you. Anything else? Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We've got the press packets in the back, and we'll have this news conference on the website soon. So thank you.